Space exploration will be so unsustainable without a serious civilian space settlement program. And next slide, please. Could you turn up the slides? Next slide. Oh, sorry. Great, thank you. It would be nice to keep the suspense until the proper slides will demonstrate this type. But just in case I will not be able to show all of my slides, because in all the presentation this thing happens, I will tell you the very core concept that is stand on the basis of this concept. So what I'm saying is that, and what we discussed at our Congress, of course, that if the civilian space development will not start, will not kick off during the next 10 years before 2030, there will be too many social and economic and environmental problems, because we already see all of these crises currently in this moment, that will probably cut the wings of the space explorers. So, with this presentation, I want to demonstrate that space settlers are the best friends of space explorers, and that space exploration can be relaunched at a very higher pace if space settlement will begin, will be seriously begin. In my presentation, okay, I will go on now. So you know what the title means. So we invested about 2 trillion from the beginning, from the first flight of Yuri Gagarin in 1961. And we had, of course, a lot of return in terms of fallout of the space exploration on our daily life, because there is none aspect of our daily life that is not impacted, affected by space. Many technologies and so on. The cellular telephone, just to say one, but I don't want to make the list now too long. So, but the only the requirement to have an improvement of our life on the surface of our planet is not the only requirement of space development, let's say in more general terms, including both exploration and settlement. So a major requirement now that is more and more evident is that we need Planet B, or the equivalent of several planets B, because 8 billion people cannot make it anymore on one only planet. We are late in this development, and this is why. The concept of a fully reusable two-stage to orbit was already developed as experimental project in the 60s with the X-15 project. That was the precursor of the current Virgin Galactic spaceship to suborbital vehicle. Of course, it was a B-52 bomber that brought the X-15 in an altitude of 30 kilometers, and then launch it to reach the Kármán line, 100 kilometers. But the first project, the first design of the space shuttle made by Kraft-Erike in the early 80s was a fully reusable two-stage to orbit. It was the first design foreseeing to the space shuttle to be carried at 20 or 30 kilometers by a first stage that should re-enter an airplane, like the Virgin Galactic catamaran airplane. So that's why we say we are in delay, because we could have this technology of a two-stage fully reusable since at least 30 or 40 years, with a great more advancement of the civilian space development. But we are now finally, thanks to Elon Musk and his visionary effort, developing fully reusable rockets. That would mean downsizing of the cost to orbit. That will open the frontier to private enterprise. Okay. Trying to go quickly, that's what I was saying. Of course, all of this new space segment is thanks to the two other visionary guys that were Peter Diamandis and Greg Mariniak, that in the early 2000s made the X Prize that was won by Escape Composer in 2004, and then by Virgin Galactic and so on. But what we have to observe now is that we are lacking a settlement strategy. And if we want to really start to move, to expand into space, we need to approach some very important issues that are the issues that will allow civilian passengers untrained, like when we take an airline, normal airline, to travel to orbit and to work and live for long periods of time, even in undetermined time, in an Earth orbit and a geolunar space and beyond. Basically, three problems. The first one is the protection from cosmic radiation. The second one is the problem of low gravity or zero gravity. That affect, both of these problems affect the human health very, very badly, like experienced by NASA astronaut Scott Kelly demonstrated, staying on the ISS for 1 year. The third problem that we have to approach to solve is the green environment in the space habitats, because this is a big problem from the psychological point of view, from the also living point of view, because we need vegetables, we need maybe also animals, the environment that we are used to. We cannot live into iron cans for months and years. So what we suggest is a stronger experimentation and development, because these three problems are scientific problems, cannot be solved by brave entrepreneurs. It needs collaboration with space agency, with the scientific space community. Okay, space settlements also have, of course, enemies, ideological enemies. We know them all, not worth to talk about. And this is a problem of outreach, it's a problem of education, it's a problem to go over and explain why humanity badly needs to start expanding. Sorry. This comparison table demonstrates why space settlers are the best friends of space explorers. Space expansion doesn't kill space exploration. Opposite, it enhances it, because when we will have our outpost on the moon, in the Lagrange points, in on Mars, in Mars orbit, etc., we will need to go ahead exploring further, going to the external solar system and behind. What Jeff Grison said at the ISDC convention in 2017 is a fundamental thing, that a good strategy for space settlement could be based, and should be based, on producing fuel in space. When we will be mining the moon and the asteroids and produce fuel, that will be another key milestone in the downsizing of the cost of any mission, both for exploration purposes and for settlement. Because very simply, we will not have any more to carry in orbit a big quantity of fuel, because you know that what affects very much the cost to the launch to orbit is the enormous quantity of fuel that is to be brought there. Think about having fuel station, gas station in orbit. So the energy problem is another one that can only be resolved by expanding into space. This is the Jeff Bezos plan, to move the industrial development outside Earth. It progressively, of course, cannot be done in 2 years, of course. If we do that, the energy demand on Earth will only be the one of private citizens, because the industrial demand will be outside, solved by solar power. And therefore, we can stop worrying about end of oil, negativity of nuclear, and uncertainty of the renewable energies, and so on. So all of these things are, however, temporary measure. Renewable can help to have a bit longer period, allowing us to start moving outside. About economy, foreseen by Morgan Stanley to have in 2040 a 1 trillion worth space economy is wrong, because very simply, or it will be very much bigger, about maybe 3 or 4 trillions, or it will be very much less. If the space economy will only be in 2040 based on the traditional space, like in this forecast, the new space activities are only 5%. This is a completely unrealistic foresee, because if we will have civilian space development well rooted in 2040, then the economy will be very much bigger, 3.5 trillion, for instance, but maybe even more. Think about mining the moon. Okay. Of the energy, I already talked. Okay. Okay, social weakness of the green transition, I already talked. So I think I can go directly. Okay, just this one. A strategy to develop it before 2030. Assure the Elon Musk agenda, developing fully reusable starships to assure low-cost, safe and reliable space transport systems. Support space tourism, because it's the only branch, industrial branch, that is now approaching the problem of transporting civilian passengers in space. So from ergonomical point of view, from the comfortable point of view, low acceleration, safe re-entry in atmosphere, all these kind of things. Accelerate the development and validation of the enabling technologies that I said before, protection, cosmic radiation, artificial gravity, and green environments. Space debris, recovery and reuse when the space debris becomes a factor of development and instead of an expense. When we will start reusing the debris, then it will become a source of business. So producing fuel and develop the Jeff Bezos plan to moving industrial development outside. This is, of course, an allegoric view of a space whale eating space debris, and this is all. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions in the audience for Adriano? Okay, I think in the interest of time, we'll thank you very much for your presentation. And
thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
So